It was my birthday on the 14th, so today we're looking at how I made this special birthday cake for my 30th birthday. Hi there, foodie friends. My name is Carly and welcome back to my channel, Adventures in Yum. For the past few years, I've been making my own birthday cake because I love experimenting with new flavor combinations and decorating techniques. Every year so far has involved ice cream for the filling and some kind of drip on the outside for decoration, but we are totally changing everything up this year. After all, it is my 30th birthday, so we gotta change it up and make it even more exciting. For the cake layers, I decided to start with a graham cracker crust made with graham cracker crumbs, granulated sugar, and melted butter because I've made cupcakes with a graham cracker crust and I loved it. I added about a half cup or so of graham cracker mixture to each 6-inch cake pan, which made a thin crust. For a thicker crust, I could have added an extra quarter to half a cup. I made a lot of graham cracker mixture because I wasn't quite sure how much I needed, so I used the extra to make some cheesecake bars, which I'll share in a shorts video very soon. We then whip up my favorite chocolate cake recipe, except this time instead of using dark or regular unsweetened cocoa powders, we're using black cocoa. I've wanted to try this because black cocoa is used to make Oreos and give them that signature flavor, so I wanted to see how it would taste in cake batter. My go-to chocolate cake recipe will be linked in the video description. Once the cake batter was ready, we evenly divide the batter between 4 6-inch cake pans and then bake them for about 25 to 30 minutes or until a cake tester comes out clean. After chilling the cake in the refrigerator for at least a few hours or overnight, we use a cake leveler to remove the dome tops of each cake. And then we make sure that these stay covered and chilled until we're ready to stack the cake. Usually for my birthday cakes, I make an ice cream filling, but this time I decided to go with a cheesecake filling. So I prepared 1.5 batches of my homemade vanilla cheesecake. You can click on the link in the description for that video. Once the cheesecake is baked, cooled, and then chilled in the fridge for at least a few hours, we take a large cookie cutter with a diameter of approximately 4.5 or about 11.5 centimeters and cut circles in the cheesecake. Here I cut 6 cheesecake circles because I love a lot of filling in my cakes. Once that was complete, once again, we make sure that the cheesecake is completely covered and in the fridge until we're ready to use it. Finally, before we assemble the cake, we need some buttercream, so I made a batch of my vanilla Swiss meringue buttercream as well as some dark chocolate French buttercream. My Swiss meringue buttercream video is linked in the description, and for the French buttercream, I started with Preppy Kitchen's recipe and then started to play around with it to make my own adapted version. I'm still working on developing this recipe that I'll certainly share once I am completely happy with it. I decided to make a dark chocolate version of this buttercream because chocolate buttercream is much easier to darken with black food gel so that you actually end up using less food coloring. I also decided to try out a technique I saw online to help darken buttercream even more. I usually use my kitchen torch to help develop the colors in my buttercream because heat really helps the colors become more vibrant. The technique I decided to try out uses a hand blender or immersion blender to darken the buttercream. This technique worked insanely well, and I will certainly be using it again, especially when making a beautiful deep black buttercream like this one. Now it's time to assemble the cake. We add a dollop of buttercream to act as the glue to keep the cake on the cake board. Then we add one of the cake layers, and next we add a disc of cheesecake in the center of that cake. We then add a layer of fresh raspberries that have been thoroughly cleaned and air dried, and then add another cheesecake disc on top of the raspberries. Next we add another layer of cake and then repeat the same pattern until we get to our final cake layer. I like to flip my top cake layer to give the cake a nice flat top. Because of how tall the cake is, I also did have to add a dowel in the center of the cake to provide some structure. Once the cake was fully stacked using a piping bag fitted with a Wilton 1/8 tip, we pipe rings of buttercream around the filling layers that will help fill in the sides of the cake as well as add support once the cake is chilled. We now add some buttercream to the outside of the cake and use an offset spatula to spread it into a thin, even layer on the outside of the cake. This is our crumb coats that will help lock in crumbs so that there won't be any cake crumbs showing in the final layer of buttercream. Once that's done, we pop it into the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes or in the freezer for at least 15 to 30 minutes. Next, we're adding more buttercream and smoothing it all over the cake. We use a combination of a cake scraper and an offset spatula to smooth the buttercream. We also use the offset spatula to make little pockets on the side of the cake and add purple, pink, and blue buttercreams to the cake. We warm our cake scraper with either hot water or carefully with a kitchen torch and continuously scrape the buttercream and add more of whatever colors we need until we're happy with our basic galaxy pattern. We place that in the fridge to allow the buttercream to set for another 20 to 30 minutes. Before we finish this cake, if you're getting value out of this video, then please make sure to hit that like button, click subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified about my latest video. To get a really sharp edge on the top of the cake, we take the chilled cake and a warmed paring knife and carefully cut the excess off the top. I also used an offset spatula to help smooth the top as well. We then use a food brush that's been dipped in some white icing color and hold the brush about 6 inches or so away from the cake and hit the back of the brush to create a splattered star effect. We continue to do this until we're happy with the amount of splattered stars on the cake. On a side note, making a little foil for it like what I did here will significantly reduce the amount of cleanup from the splatter. As a bonus, I also decided to add a few edible gold stars to the cake, and finally I added this happy 30th birthday cake topper that I found on Amazon. And here's the completed cake. We actually took this with us to the restaurant that my family and I went to for my birthday dinner. As you can see from the video, the inside layers are nice and even, and what's even better is how it tasted. The deep chocolate cake combined with the creamy vanilla cheesecake as well as the creamy buttercream, and that perfect pop of freshness from the fresh raspberries was such a fantastic combination. For the decoration, I usually decorate my cakes based on the flavor profile, but I'm really happy I decided to go with a galaxy design this time because I really love galaxy patterns. This cake was a great way to top off a lovely 30th birthday. Let me know in those comments below what you thought of this cake and what is your ideal birthday cake. If you're interested in checking out some of the products I used in this video, then please make sure to check out that video description below for some of their Amazon links. Thank you so much for joining me today, foodie friends. I'll see you next time for another yummy adventure.